Introduction to Investments, Part 2. Objectives of Investment. The two main objectives of investments are maximization of return and minimization of risk. While investors routinely aim to maximize returns and minimize risk, these two objectives exist in direct tension with each other. In financial theory and practice, higher expected returns almost universally require taking on higher risk. Return represents the gain or loss generated by an investment over a given period, expressed either as an absolute amount or a percentage of the initial principal. Investors seek to maximize returns to compound wealth, beat inflation, and meet future financial targets. Returns generally come in two forms. First, capital appreciation, an increase in the asset's market value over time. For example, buying a stock at 50 pesos and selling it at 75. Second is yield or income, regular cash flows generated by the asset. For example, stock dividends and bond coupon payments. Rather than pursuing return maximization or risk minimization in isolation, modern portfolio management seeks risk adjusted returns, maximizing return for a specific acceptable level of risk. How can we do this? We have diversification, which refers to spreading capital across non correlated asset classes to eliminate unsystematic risk without sacrificing expected return. Another strategy is asset allocation, balancing equities, fixed income, and cash based on age and financial objectives. And another strategy would be hedging. This refers to utilizing options, futures, or inverse assets to offset potential downside in core holdings. Risk is the uncertainty surrounding the actual return an investment will generate, specifically the probability of losing a portion or all of the original capital. Minimizing risk focuses on capital preservation, volatility reduction, and ensuring liquidity when funds are needed. Key sources of risk include market volatility, inflation or purchasing power loss, default or credit risk, and liquidity risk. Beyond maximizing returns and minimizing risk, investors structure their portfolios to achieve four additional core objectives. Number one, maintaining liquidity. Liquidity refers to how quickly and easily an asset can be converted into cash at fair market value without significant loss of capital. Maintaining liquidity ensures an investor can meet unexpected financial emergencies, short term obligations, or capitalize on immediate market opportunities without being forced to sell long term assets at a discount. For example, holding cash in a high yield savings account or allocating capital to 30-day treasury bills. An investor can access these funds almost instantly with zero risk of capital loss when emergency expenses arise. Next, hedging against inflation. Inflation hedging aims to preserve the purchasing power of capital over time. Inflation systematically erodes the real value of money, meaning nominal returns must outpace the rate of inflation to yield true purchasing power gains. Assets that hedge against inflation typically have intrinsic value, revenue tied to price indices, or the ability to adjust prices upward alongside broader economic inflation. For example, investing in real estate or treasury inflation protected securities or TIPS. TIPS adjust their principal value based on changes in the consumer price index, ensuring the invested principal keeps pace with rising consumer prices. Third is increasing safety or capital preservation. This prioritizes keeping the nominal principal completely safe from loss, taking precedence over earning high returns. This objective is vital for investors with short term horizons, low risk tolerance, or specific near term capital needs. For example, retirees living off fixed wealth or buyers saving for a down payment. For example, purchasing certificates of deposits that are insured or sovereign government bonds. An investor locking 50,000 pesos into a 1 year government backed certificate of deposit guarantees that 100% of the principal will be returned at maturity plus fixed interest. And the last one is tax efficiency and savings. Tax optimization seeks to legally minimize or defer the tax burden on investment growth and income, maximizing the net return on capital or the after tax return on capital. Since income tax and capital gains tax reduce compounding efficiency, structuring investments within tax advantage accounts or instruments allows wealth to accumulate faster. For example, investing in municipal bonds or contributing to tax deferred retirement vehicles. Like in the US, the traditional 401k or 401k is known to be a good option. Interest earned on municipal bonds is generally exempt from income taxes, making them specially attractive for high earners. Investment versus speculation. Investment involves the allocation of money towards the purchase of an asset which is not to be consumed in the present, but hoping it will generate stable income or is expected to appreciate in the future. Investment is said to be the allocation of capital to assets after thorough analysis, aiming for predictable long term returns and principal preservation through underlying income generation or fundamental asset growth. Speculation, by contrast, is the purchase of an asset based on anticipated price fluctuations rather than underlying economic value or income. Speculators take on high, often unquantified risk in pursuit of rapid, above average gains over a short time horizon. Rather than evaluating cash flows, business fundamentals, or long term growth potential, speculation relies heavily on market sentiment, technical momentum, and short term supply demand dynamics. This slide shows us the differences between investment and speculation in terms of time horizon, risk, source of income, stability of income, use of funds, type of contract, and psychological attitude of participants. Moving on, we go to the comparison of investment and gambling. By now, we already know the definition of investment. We said earlier that this is the allocation of capital to assets or economic activities that generate positive expected value over time by creating real wealth, earning revenues, or growing underlying enterprise value. In contrast to gambling, investment is a positive sum game. I repeat, it is a positive sum game. The overall pool of wealth expands, meaning multiple participants can profit simultaneously as businesses grow, property appreciates, or interest compounds. Investors use fundamental analysis and risk management to align with broader economic growth over multi year horizons. For example, purchasing shares in a diversified index fund like the S&P 500 or buying dividend-paying stocks. Over decades, as businesses innovate, increase earnings and pay dividends, total wealth grows for shareholders regardless of short-term price movements. Gambling is the wagering of money on an event with an uncertain outcome, primarily governed by chance, where the mathematical expected value is strictly negative for the player. Gambling is also defined as taking something on a contingency, also known as betting or wagering. It means risking money on an event that has an uncertain outcome. Unlike investing, traditional gambling is a zero sum or negative sum game. Again, zero sum or negative sum game. No underlying economic value or wealth is created. The total payout pool is equal or less than after the operator cut. Okay? So the total payout pool is equal to the total wagers placed. Participants rely purely on luck or short term statistical probability rather than value creation, with the odds systematically stacked against them over time. For example, betting on a card game, playing slot machines, or wagering on sports outcomes. While individual players may win in the short term, the house edge guarantees that aggregate capital decreases for participants the longer they play. Like investors, gamblers must also carefully weigh the amount of capital they want to put in play. You cannot afford to lose everything. Other differences between investing and gambling are presented in this slide. We now move on to the types of investors. The first type of investors are individual investors. They are large in number, but their investable resources are comparatively smaller. The size of the portfolio of each investor is usually small. Individual investors are also known as retail investors. They are non professional individuals who invest their own personal capital to achieve personal financial goals such as building wealth, funding retirement, or paying for education. They generally trade in smaller volumes compared to financial institutions and manage their assets independently through personal accounts, automated robo advisors, which is a trend in other countries nowadays, or with the assistance of a certified financial planner. Their investment decisions are typically driven by personal risk tolerance, individual life stage, time horizon, and immediate liquidity needs. Depending on their capital size, strategy, and level of involvement, individual investors generally fall into few distinct categories like retail or self-directed, active or speculative retail, angel investors, and also high net worth investors. The next type are our institutional investors. These are organizations that pull money from thousands of individuals, companies, or entities to make large scale investments in financial markets. Unlike retail investors, institutional investors trade in massive capital volumes and exert substantial market influence. Because of their scale, sophistication, and access to proprietary research, they have access to exclusive investment opportunities such as private equity, venture capital, and private debt that are generally unavailable to individual investors. They are typically held to strict fiduciary standards, meaning they are legally and ethically obligated to manage funds in the best interest of their clients or beneficiaries. So, what are the core characteristics describing our institutional investors? Number one, market impact. Their trades account for the majority of overall trading volume in public exchanges, meaning their buying and selling can drive market trends. Key types of institutional investors include mutual funds and exchange traded funds, pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, and hedge funds, among others. Second, we have professional management. These are managed by full time portfolio managers, quantitative analysts, and financial professionals. Third characteristic is lower transaction costs. Scale allows them to negotiate lower execution fees and commission rates. And lastly, there's regulatory oversight. Subject to rigorous reporting, compliance, and capital requirement standards imposed by financial regulatory bodies. Let us go over examples of these institutional investors. The first is mutual fund. A mutual fund is an open ended institutional investment vehicle that pools money from multiple individual and institutional investors to purchase a diversified portfolio of securities such as equities, bonds, money market instruments, or a combination of this. Each investor holds shares in the mutual fund, which proportionately represent their ownership stake in the fund's underlying assets and the income generated by them. Mutual funds are professionally managed by asset management companies and are priced daily on their net asset value per share. They provide retail investors with immediate diversification, professional fund management, and liquidity, as shares can typically be bought or redeemed directly through the fund management company on any business day. The key characteristics of a mutual fund are the following. Number one, pooled structure. It collects small contributions from thousands of investors to build a multi-million or even multi-billion peso fund. Second characteristic is professional management. A mutual fund is managed by licensed portfolio managers and research analysts who make investment decisions based on the fund's objective. Another characteristic is regulatory oversight. In the Philippines, mutual funds are structured as investment companies regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commission under the Investment Company Act. Then we also have NAVPS valuation. The price of a mutual fund share is calculated at the end of each trading day by taking the total value of assets minus liabilities divided by the total number of outstanding shares. NAVPS refer to net asset value per share. In the Philippines, mutual funds are managed by investment company managers or asset management companies like Sun Life Asset Management Company, PhilEquity Management, BPI Wealth, and First Metro Asset Management. The next example of institutional investors would be pension fund. A pension fund is an institutional investment pool established by employers, governments, or financial institutions to accumulate, invest, and grow capital collected from employee and employer contributions. Its primary objective is to generate stable, long term returns to pay out guaranteed or dynamic retirement income, disability benefits, and pensions to eligible members upon retirement. Because pension funds handle multi billion peso pools of money with long time horizons, they are among the largest institutional investors in global financial markets. They typically follow strict asset allocation models, investing heavily in low risk government bonds, investment grade corporate bonds, blue chip equities, infrastructure projects, and real estate to balance wealth growth with capital preservation. In the Philippines, pension funds exist across state mandated social security programs, voluntary government schemes, and corporate enterprise plans. For example, we have our public or mandatory state pension funds. So we have Social Security System or SSS. This is the primary pension fund for private sector employees, self-employed workers, and voluntary members in the Philippines. SSS collects monthly contributions, manages a reserve fund worth hundreds of billions of pesos, and reinvests those funds into Philippine government securities, equities, real estate, and loans to ensure long term payouts for its members. There's also the Government Service Insurance System or GSIS, the counterpart to SSS, exclusively serving those who are in the government. So this would now include those who are serving the public sector. We have government employees like civil servants, public school teachers, and many others. GSIS manages a massive investment portfolio deployed across sovereign bonds, domestic infrastructure projects, and real estate assets to back members' life insurance and retirement benefits. There are also what we refer to as voluntary or supplementary pension frameworks. Like we have the Personal Equity and Retirement Account or PERA. This was established under Republic Act number 9505 PERA is the Philippines' voluntary retirement savings framework, somewhat similar to an IRA in the United States. Accredited administrators such as Banco de Oro and Bank of the Philippine Islands manage PERA investment funds, pooling individual retirement contributions into SEC-registered mutual funds and UITFs tailored for long-term retirement growth. There's also what we refer to as your private corporate pension plans. These are company sponsored retirement funds. So, under the Retirement Pay Law, RA 7641, private companies in the Philippines set up employee retirement trust funds managed by trust entities or banks. These corporate pension funds invest pooled employee retirement reserves directly into domestic capital markets. The next example of institutional investor is endowment fund. This is an institutional investment portfolio established by a non-profit organization. I would like to highlight that, okay, non-profit organization such as a university, hospital, religious institution, or foundation. These are funded by private donations, gifts, or institutional surpluses. Unlike typical operational budgets that are meant to be spent immediately, the core principle of an endowment is permanence. The principal investment is kept intact and invested indefinitely across a diversified portfolio of equities, fixed income, real estate, and private assets. The income, dividends, and capital growth generated by the principal are then systematically withdrawn to fund long term mission objectives such as scholarships, academic chair research grants, facilities, the maintenance no, of facilities, or other charitable programs. The characteristics of endowment fund include number one, intergenerational equity. This is designed to last perpetually, balancing the financial support of current operations with preserving purchasing power for future generations. Another characteristic is long term time horizon. Because the principal capital is never fully liquidated, endowment funds can tolerate short term market volatility and invest in illiquid long term asset classes. The last characteristic on our list is donor constraints. Contributions to endowments are often legally restricted by donors to support specific programs. So, for example, that of a specific scholarship fund. While university and foundation endowments in the Philippines are generally smaller in scale than massive multi billion dollar Ivy League endowments in the United States, several prominent Philippine educational and charitable institutions maintain established endowment funds. So, for example, we have university endowments like that of the Ateneo de Manila University Scholarship and University Endowment. This is managed under the university's Finance and Investment Office. Ateneo maintains multiple endowed funds created by alumni donations and foundations. The investment returns directly fund full and partial scholarship for thousands of underprivileged students each academic year, as well as faculty development grants. There's also the De La Salle University Star Scholars and Endowment Funds. So DLSU manages endowment funds where the capital is invested in domestic equities, government bonds, and trust funds. The proceeds cover tuition waivers, monthly stipends, and research grants for academic scholars. There are also foundation and nonprofit endowments, like, for example, the Ayala Foundation Incorporated. They manage long term trust and endowment reserves deployed in conservative income generating assets to ensure sustainable funding for community development, arts, and educational initiatives across the Philippines. Another example of institutional investors would be insurance companies. Insurance companies collect policy premiums and reinvest those pools of capital until claims must be paid out. The interval between collecting premiums and paying future claims creates an insurance float, or a massive pool of investable capital. Because the nature of liabilities differ drastically between life and non life insurers, their investment strategies and asset allocations vary significantly. Let us take a look at life insurance companies. Life insurance policies feature long term liabilities spanning many years. Because claims such as retirement benefits, annuities, or end of life policy payouts are predictable over extended horizons, life insurers operate with a long term investment horizon. For example, under investment strategy, they focus on liability driven investing and asset liability matching to lock in long term yields. Capital is deployed heavily into fixed income securities, sovereign debt, corporate bonds, dividend paying equities, and long term infrastructure assets. There's also, of course, the role as institutional investors. They act as steady, long term capital providers to national governments and corporations issuing long term debt or equity securities. Examples in the Philippines include the Insular Life Assurance Company Limited, the first local mutual life insurance company in the Philippines. In Life, as known to many, pulls premiums into long term corporate bonds, domestic equities, and commercial real estate properties across major business districts like Makati and Philinvest Alabang to back policy claims. Then we have non life or general insurance companies. Non life insurance companies cover property, motor vehicle, casualty, health, and marine losses. Claims in this sector are highly short term and unpredictable, as sudden natural disasters, fires, or vehicle accidents can trigger massive immediate claim payouts. So, what is their investment strategy? These companies prioritize high liquidity and capital preservation. Non-life insurers maintain short-term investment horizons, allocating money into money market instruments, short-duration government treasury bills, bank deposits, and highly liquid commercial papers. So, what's their role as institutional investors? They act as primary liquidity providers in short term money markets while taking conservative liquid stakes in fixed income to ensure immediate cash flow availability. Examples in the Philippines would include Malayan Insurance Company Incorporated and Pioneer Insurance and Surety Corporation. These are leading non life insurers in the country. Given the Philippines' high exposure to typhoons and natural disasters, these companies hold significant allocations in short-term Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas securities, 91-day to 364-day treasury bills, and highly liquid bank placements to respond rapidly when catastrophe claims arise. Let us go over banks as institutional investors. Commercial and universal banks act as major institutional investors by allocating their capital reserves, customer deposits, and retained earnings into financial securities. Unlike traditional lending, a bank's investment arm, primarily its treasury division, purchases fixed income securities, government debt, corporate securities, and money market assets to achieve the following goals. Number one, managing liquidity and reserve requirements, maintaining a mandatory cushion of high quality liquidity assets to comply with the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas capital requirements and satisfy sudden cash withdrawals. Another goal is generating yield on excess deposits, earning interest on idle depositor funds that are not currently deployed in loans. And the third goal is proprietary trading and strategic holdings, trading bonds, foreign exchange, and equity securities to earn capital gains or holding equity stakes in strategic subsidiaries. So, what are their core investment strategy and goal or role? We have here asset profile. So banks prioritize capital safety and high liquidity. Remember, the money they use is not their money, it's their depositors' money. Their investment portfolios consist predominantly of short to long term government bonds, central bank bills, high grade corporate debt, and short term interbank money market placements. And they have capital market makers. Universal banks act as primary dealers in government bond auctions, purchasing sovereign debt directly from the government and making secondary markets for other institutional and retail investors. The Philippine banking sector manages nearly 32 trillion in total financial assets. The largest universal banks in the country function as primary institutional investors in domestic and regional capital markets. Let us now discuss briefly the different investment vehicles. An investment vehicle is simply an investment product that is offered to investors to provide the chance for investors to earn a return or profit on the product purchased. Direct and indirect investments. The distinction between direct and indirect investments lies in ownership, degree of control, and operational involvement. Investors make direct investments when they purchase physical assets, tangible property, or controlling or non controlling equity directly in a specific enterprise. In a direct investment, the investor takes on direct exposure to the underlying asset retains full ownership rights, and often bears direct responsibility for management, maintenance, or decision making. Investors make indirect investments when they buy the securities of companies. They place capital into pooled financial funds, professionally managed vehicles, or holding companies where financial intermediaries allocate money across various underlying assets on your behalf. In an indirect investment, you own shares or units in the intermediary fund rather than direct title to the physical or individual assets. You delegate day to day management, asset selection, and operational decisions to professional fund managers. Short-term investment vehicles are money market assets or debt instruments designed for high capital preservation, minimal risk, and rapid liquidity. They typically mature within 1 year or less. Investors use them to store idle cash, protect capital against short-term market volatility, or build emergency funds while earning a modest interest yield above traditional savings accounts. Key features include low risk, high liquidity, short maturity horizon, low to moderate yield. An example of a short-term investment vehicle would be Philippine Treasury bills or T-bills. These are short-term sovereign debt issued by the Bureau of the Treasury in tenors of 90, 180, and 360 days. Backed by the national government, they carry virtually zero default risk. The next would be fixed income securities. These are debt instruments issued by governments or corporations to raise capital. When an investor purchases a fixed income security, they are effectively lending money to the issuer in exchange for regular, predictable interest payments over a fixed period, alongside the full return of the principal amount at maturity. The key features of fixed income securities include predictable income stream, contractual repayment structure, safer than equities but subject to interest rate and inflation risks. Then we have common stock or equities. They represent fractional ownership in a corporation. When an investor buys common stock, they become a shareholder and gain voting rights alongside proportional claims on the company's future profits and net assets. Common stock is a core vehicle for long term wealth creation, generating returns through capital appreciation and dividend payouts. The key features of equities include the potential for high long term returns, ownership rights, no guaranteed returns, higher price volatility compared to fixed income. Then we have speculative investment vehicles. These are high risk financial assets purchased primarily on the expectation of rapid price swings, market momentum, or short term supply demand imbalances rather than underlying cash flows, earnings, or fundamental intrinsic value. While they offer the potential for extraordinary rapid capital gains, they also carry a substantial risk of partial or complete loss of principal. The key features of speculative investment vehicles include high volatility, unquantified downside risk, absence of stable yield or cash flows, driven by sentiment, speculation, and leverage. So, an example here would be on cryptocurrencies and digital tokens. High volatility crypto assets traded on Securities and Exchange Commission licensed virtual asset service providers in the Philippines like Coins.ph or Maya. We also have other investment tools. So, beyond the traditional short term paper, bonds, equities, and speculative instruments, several other investment tools exist across alternative assets, hybrid instruments, real assets, and indirect vehicles. So, for example, we have hybrid securities. There are also what we call real assets and real estate investment trusts, or REITs. And we also have commodities and precious metals like gold, silver, platinum, okay, energy and industrial commodities like crude oil, natural gas, okay, and others. There's also structured products and derivative contracts. There's also private equity and venture capital. This concludes part 2 of lesson 1, Introduction to Investments.